Today we're going to be reading some Glitch in the Matrix stories. I'm not talking about a weird coincidence, I'm talking about a situation you still think about to this day, or maybe even keeps you up at night. When I was a kid, my family and I went for a walk on the beach during mid-winter. Halfway through the walk, it started blizzarding fierce, and we decided to head back to the car. On the way back to the car park, my brothers and I were complaining of being tired, hungry, and thirsty, but my dad, who was born and raised in the area, assured us there was nowhere to buy food and drink anywhere near that particular beach. However, as we battled through the whiteout towards the car park, a building loomed out of the blizzard. It was a strange building, like an annex to a 60s, 70s modern comprehensive school, people from the UK will understand, and squeezed in between 4 hedgerows atop the spine of a long, flat sand dune, as though it was there first and the ancient and haggard hedges had somehow grown around it. Outside was a sandwich board, advertising hot drinks and snacks, so we bundled on in. The place was packed. There must have been 4 or 5 dozen tables, and every single one was heaving with pensioners eating tea, toast, tea cake, soup, etc. When we arrived, there were no other cars in the car park, and the nearest bus stop was in the village at the end of the track a good few miles away, so goodness knows where all these old people had come from. The room itself was very strange. The tables and chairs were all mismatched and arranged around glass display cases on podiums filled with moldering taxidermied specimens of local wildlife, except many of the examples were either creatures who live nowhere near the sea, hedgehogs, badgers, voles, etc., or animals that aren't native or very rare to the area. At the center of the room was a squared-off spiral staircase leading to the upstairs, which, despite having no curtains visible from the outside, and being in the middle of the day in a bright white snowstorm, was pitch dark. I mean, so black we couldn't even see the top of the staircase banisters. We sat down and my dad went off to get us some food. The oddest thing is that even at that age, I remember looking at the prices on the wall and being very confused because they were all in old money, with prices like ha'pennies, 6pence, shillings, etc. It was an open-pass kitchen, and all the equipment behind it looked very old, or retro, I guess, as did the clothes of the very plump, happy women working behind the counter. When my dad came back with the food, he couldn't stop talking about how amazingly cheap it was, and how the woman who served him spoke to him using ultra-specific regional dialect, terms he thought had completely died out decades ago. He said it was like being a schoolboy at the tuck shop again. We ate our very, very generous and delicious tea cakes and hot chocolate, got back into our coats, hats, scarves, and gloves, and walked out into the raging blizzard. The whole time we were there, not a single other person entered or left, despite many tables clearing, having finished eating before we even arrived. We battled back to the car and with much difficulty maneuvered it back onto the tracks to the main road and headed home. In the years to come, we visited that beach many, many times. The building was not there. Not only was it not there, there were no signs that I'd ever been there. No rubble, no ruins, no footprints, no foundations, not even the ancient-looking hedges that it had squeezed itself inside of. Now it's easy to think, as I've grown older, I've become confused as to which beach we visited, but my dad, who was born and raised there, knew exactly which beach we were on, and the beach itself is very, very distinctive. The place didn't exist. It had never existed. I ate tea cakes and drank hot chocolate with my family in a place that simply never was. I didn't understand half of that because British, maybe? And it's freaking me out that this place just never existed. Does your family remember going there? Or is this just your memory? Because I have to know. If all of you remember that, and it just doesn't exist, oh my god. It was storming like mad when I drove home from work at 10 p.m. and I was on a 2-lane, 45-mile-per-hour, mostly straight country road with small rolling hills. The area has had a lot of population growth lately, so there's a ton more cars on the road at all hours now, so I'm used to getting stuck behind slow drivers. This road also has deep drainage ditches on the sides because it's a floodplain, and the road surface isn't in great condition either, so there's a lot of deep puddles of standing water because the ditches were already overflowing by the time I left work. I have ADHD and have a tendency of tailgating on autopilot, so I try very hard not to creep up on people, and the rain was so bad it was like I was driving through a hurricane, so I left a good amount of space between our cars. The guy behind me was not happy that we were going under the speed limit and goes to pass both me and the car in front of me, with a tractor trailer coming over the hill in the opposite lane. The guy behind me guns it and tries to burn past us both, and I had just enough time to say, "Oh, you dumb fuck," and my lizard brain must have realized my life was in danger and went on hyper alert or something because time slowed down so much it was like I was watching a movie in slow motion. I see the dude try to speed around me, he loses traction, hydroplanes a little, I'm braking hard seeing what's about to happen and sliding a bit as well, but heavy trucks hauling a trailer can't stop on a dime, certainly not in a heavy downpour. The truck driver is leaning on the horn and the guy rips his car back into my lane between me and the car in front of me, and I swear to God he went through the front end of my car. I drive an Elantra, so it's a fairly compact car, but I saw the tail end of his car intersect and pass through my car like when graphics clip with each other in video games. It looked like he just drove through me, like I was a ghost, or he was a ghost, but the truck saw him too. I have never wished I had an onboard dash cam more than that night because I want to verify if I'm crazy. My proximity sensors were going crazy on my dashboard, so if he just missed me, it had to have been by a micrometer, though my brain can't fathom how it happened. It makes me wonder if my parallel self in another dimension is now in a body bag in the morgue. I'm still baffled as to why I'm not in traction in the hospital right now because some impatient jackass needed to win the Indy 500 on a flooded back road in a goddamn monsoon. I will never understand why people are so insane. Even if it's not storming outside, what the fuck is the rush? I feel like there are very few scenarios where it makes sense for you to be in a rush, but honestly, you're putting your life and others' lives in danger. There's no point. Stop. Like, slow down. If you're gonna be late for something, that's also your fault. Don't kill me because you're an idiot. But like, him passing through your car, like you're a ghost or he's a ghost or who's a ghost and what the fuck? Like, how does that even happen? Because you can't mistake that. If he was really that close to you and you saw the end of his car going into the front of your car, I don't get it. I don't get it. When I was 25, I was driving home from the paint store and was waiting at the stoplight off the freeway exit ramp. While waiting, I heard brakes of a car screeching behind me. When I looked in my rearview mirror, I saw a car was about to hit my vehicle. The next thing I know, I am outside of my SUV and I see the paint extension pole that I had just purchased went right through my skull. Blood, brains on the windshield. I remember just looking at the wreck and I wasn't scared. I wasn't feeling anything. The next thing I remember, I'm sitting back inside of my car again, and I hear the screeching brakes of a car behind me. Again, I look in the mirror and the car looks like it will hit mine, but the car moves to the left and passes by mine without hitting it. Went through the red light and managed to avoid crashing into anything. When the car passed me on the left, I swear the person in the passenger seat was looking at me with a look of surprise or horror. In my mind, I imagined they remembered or saw what I had. I remember sitting at the light for a few seconds thinking, what just happened? It was such an odd thing to witness or make up in my head. I'd never had anything like that happen before. Then the light turned green and I just drove myself home. It just so happened that this outing was the very first time I'd ever left my baby, and I just wanted to get home to her. There's a part of me that believes that my body may have had a different soul, and my soul is a walk-in. The accident was for the previous soul to experience the death, and my soul came into the body to live the rest of the life in this body. From what I've been told, walk-ins do spend time with the previous soul so that they're familiar with the life, and the previous soul does stay for a while to assist the new soul in the body, until integration. People who saw me after this did tell me how much I had changed. I just got married and had a baby, so that changes a person too. But one odd thing was that my hair used to be dark, huge, and curly, and then after this, it started to straighten and turn gray. That is absolutely insane. I've never heard about your soul, like, switching. I don't know. That is so trippy to me, though. I'm like, what if I have a different soul than what I had before? Whoa. Like, even your hair changing, oh my God, I have to, like, move on. I was young, 6 or 7. Every time my best friend slept over, it would happen. I've tried to explain it away as a reoccurring nightmare, but there's just no way. To this day, my dreams don't make any sense. People, places, and things all look different in my dreams. It's very clearly not reality, but this dream was perfect. I would be in my room, every detail exactly the same. The teddy bear wallpaper, my knickknacks on the shelves, the spot on the wall where I wrote my name in crayon and blamed it on the dog. Everything, every detail perfectly as it should be. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, in the dark, in my room. I would look around and notice the shadows on the wall look like shadows of forest animals, deer, squirrels, rabbits. I would try to figure out what objects in my room were making these perfect shadows. As soon as I would come to the realization, shit, I'm getting goosebumps right now typing it out, that there was nothing in the room that could possibly cast these shadows onto the wall, they would slowly blink open their glowing eyes. Then they would peel off the wall, like you would peel a sticker label off a box. They'd hop off the wall and run over to me and kick and bite me. I could never remember how it ended. I would just wake up the next morning. I don't know why, but I never told my parents about it. It happened so many times, but I never told anyone. I was young, so I didn't have the idea to check for bruises the next day, but I was a clumsy kid, so I was covered in them anyways. I don't experience sleep paralysis, but I do occasionally wake up in the hypnopompic state to see giant shadow spiders crawling across my pillow. Terrifying. A few years ago, my then 2-year-old son woke up screaming from his nap. This was the norm for him. My oldest son would sing herself awake and he would just scream. I don't know, kids. He had a very limited vocabulary at this point, but he managed to describe sleep paralysis, complete with Hat Man to me. There's no way he could have known about the Hat Man at that age, but he told me about him. That was the proof I needed. Shadow entities are real. I've heard they haunt generations of families. Well, as I was explaining his experience and then my childhood experience to my mom, she admitted to me that she sees shadow people occasionally. And that's it. I'm a believer for life. Me too. Actually, same. Like, add me to the list. The oddly realistic dreams are something that I have also had almost my entire life. I used to have this dream when I was a little kid that we were driving to the airport, and I grew up in Arizona. Like, you know, I've always lived within pretty much like a 20-mile radius of my hometown, other than when I lived in Texas, but that's beside the point. And so driving to the airport was always the same. And I would have these oddly realistic dreams where we were driving to the airport and everything looked real. Everything was the same as it was in real life. But then all of a sudden, as we were getting closer to the airport, it would just drop off into this like straight down road, and we would be going so fast and I would be screaming and crying and I would wake up just so confused. But I had that dream all the time. And it's weird. It's so weird having dreams where like everything is so normal until it's not. I don't know if you were necessarily dreaming. I do believe in shadow people, obviously. And now I'm like shadow things because the animals. But like for your 2-year-old to see the Hat Man and to be able to like say Hat Man, that's so scary. I need to preface the actual incident. As a preteen, I had seen what fit the criteria for a UFO. I received a lot of criticism and accusations of lying about it until our local newspaper ran a story about sightings that matched my description, specifically in our neighborhood. So I felt vindicated, but I never really got over the bad reaction I received from sharing my experience. A couple years later, when I was 12, I was out for the day with my grandmother. She was driving and I was in the passenger seat with the window rolled down. I was idly watching the trees go by until there was an opening and I saw a large elevated contraption. The clearing closed and it was again obscured by trees before I had the chance to process it, but it gave me the impression of something like a horizontal construction crane. I wondered what the heck they would be building in that area. Then quickly, another large opening in the trees came and I could see clearly. The contraption wasn't a crane or even supported from the ground. It was suspended in the air. The trees quickly closed, obscuring it again. This all happened within maybe 15 to 20 seconds. I remember turning and facing forward, kind of shocked for a second before noticing my grandmother was leaning over and peering through the right side of the windshield in that direction, then to me with a perplexed expression. I asked, "Did you see that?" And she nodded. I asked her to describe it, and her description basically mirrored mine. She turned the car around to backtrack and got back in the same lane so we could see it again, except we didn't. Then she turned around again and drove much further back to try again, but we couldn't see it. We spent about an hour crisscrossing streets towards that direction and never saw anything resembling or offering an explanation for what we had seen. What stood out to me was the reflected sunlight highlighting what suggested to me to be pipes and machinery running across its length that didn't appear to be in motion, just suspended. My grandmother and I talked about this a lot over the years, but we kept it to ourselves. Me, because of my bad previous experience, and she said that nobody would probably believe her either. I kind of want to know what was the first incident, because you didn't say. You just kind of hopped into nobody believed the first time I saw a UFO, so here's the second time. What happened the first time? What did you see? With the glitch in the Matrix stories, anytime there's a second witness, because if I ever have something like that happen to me and nobody else saw it, I'm losing my mind. In April, I was in a traumatic rollover accident. I'm lucky I escaped without a scratch. It was the scariest thing to ever happen to me. However, when I went back to work immediately, I shouldn't have, I was having what felt like timeline jumps. I felt like I was fighting to stay on my current timeline. I was losing moments of time here and there. One day, my coworker and I were merchandising and cleaning displays. We were literally talking to each other back and forth, back and forth. I asked her a question, and it was silent. I thought, how rude. I looked around, and she was not there, even though we were in the middle of a conversation. So I thought maybe she decided to go take a break and go to the back room since she wasn't in the lobby or bent down behind the counters. I checked the bathroom. It was empty. So I went back to doing what I was doing. And then 15 minutes went by and she still wasn't in the room. So I shout her name as loud as I can, and then she's calmly like, "I'm right here. Why are you yelling for me?" I screamed because I was startled. I started having a panic attack and crying because she said we were talking and she had been in the room the whole entire time. I said she wasn't. I told her I went to ask her a question and she had just disappeared. I was so freaked out. I felt insane, but she believed me. Update, I did have a concussion, but all scans were clear and normal. I had a CT and an MRI. This only occurred in the first 3 weeks and hasn't happened since. Stop telling me to go to the hospital. My coworker and I cannot explain it. She was my passenger in my car when the accident happened too. A week exactly before the accident, I talked to a different coworker who's kind of witchy. I told her I thought the universe was about to rock my shit and not in a good way. Her partner came in the day of the accident, and when they left, they said they felt like they were going to be in a car accident and needed to drive carefully after interacting with me. No, because you saying something, like you in the middle of a conversation, you ask a question, you look over, they're gone, and then you come to 15 minutes later and they've been there the whole time. I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind. At least she believed you. My now wife and I were on a night drive, probably around 10 p.m. I was driving down a 2-lane rural highway that passes through several small towns, but a lot of farm/rural countryside. It's a very winding and hilly road in places, and as I came over a hill on the other side, I saw a pair of legs wearing grayish pants walking across the road. What's odd about this is there was nothing above the waist, like my headlights were shining through air. I passed within 2 feet of it, as it was about in the center of the road as I passed. My mirror was probably 6 inches from it. I had my windows down, heard no one shout at me, and when we turned around and went back, after calming myself down, there was nothing there. No marks on the car or the road, no one around at all. Let me back up. When it happened, my wife and I both shouted, "What the hell?" or similar. I immediately asked her, "What did you see?" And she said, "It was just legs with no body." She used to do paranormal investigations and may be a little more sensitive to the paranormal, but is by no means easily spooked, and she was shook by seeing this. I asked her first, as I didn't want to influence what she said, and if she hadn't seen the same thing, I would have doubted myself. Neither of us were on drugs or alcohol. We were not tired, stressed, or sleep deprived. I tend to think it was something from another plane of reality or dimension or similar. Yeah, if I saw a pair of walking legs, like just walking legs walking across the road, I don't understand. I had this strange situation years ago. One morning I was going to university by bus, sitting in the back. There was a middle-aged, chubby, and somehow friendly-looking man who always tried to look me in my face. I thought nothing of it, except that he was maybe neurodiverse or something, since I was really tired. Afterwards, I went to the university building, but the library I wanted to go to was closed. I sat on a bench, and an old woman with expensive-looking clothes and jewelry, white blouse, blazer, and skirt, sat next to me and started to ask me for money for bus fare. She seemed aggressive and had bad vibes. Not unfriendly, but something evil? But hey, who am I to judge? I gave her money, and she aggressively started to ask for my name, so she could send the money to me by postal office. I read many New Age books at that time, so I remembered not to tell my name. I told her it's all right, and she suddenly disappeared. I was startled. What was that? The day still went on, so I went to the library and then took the bus home. After I arrived at my bus stop and left the bus, suddenly the man from before stood before me. He smiled at me and said, "Now I know your true face." I froze, couldn't speak. Just smiled and he went off. To this day, I'm still confused what to make out of the situation and still wondering what the hell is my or any true face. If someone has an idea, that would be lovely. Is the glitch like, were they the same person? I'm so confused because it just seems like two odd interactions, but maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. Okay, so I think about this all the time. This happened 10 years ago in Grandview, Missouri. When I was 20, I worked as a manager in the cash office at a Price Chopper grocery store. I usually had the closing shift, so I didn't get out until around 11 p.m. One night, just like any other, I clocked out and started the drive home. I only lived about 10 minutes away, if that. As I pulled up to a 4-way intersection, I was waiting for the light to turn green so I could turn left. But then, out of nowhere, the entire sky lit up with a white light. It was like the middle of the day for a moment, but it only lasted for a second, just a flash, and then it was gone, as if it never happened. I sat there stunned, trying to make sense of what I had seen. And that's when I looked down at my phone and everything changed. Somehow, it was now 3:30 in the morning. 4 hours had passed in what felt like an instant. My phone, which had been fully charged when I left work, was now completely dead. And I couldn't remember anything after the flash. No driving, no waiting, nothing. Just that 1 second of light and then silence. When I finally got home, my mom was so worried and upset. She didn't understand what had taken so long. She said she had been trying to call me for hours but couldn't get through. I didn't have any answers for her. I still don't. To this day, I have no explanation for what happened that night or what I saw. It was just a flash of light and then 4 missing hours that I never got back. Felt like 1 second. That is so scary. Those are the scariest stories to me, when you just lose a chunk of time. Like, how? Okay, and that's all I'm gonna read for now. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys have any insane Glitch in the Matrix stories that you want to share with me or the community, I will have my subreddit linked down below. These stories seriously freak me out because I don't understand, and I don't know how to explain any of them. Like, none. Except for the 2 weird people. That one maybe we can explain. It was just 2 weird people. Unless they were the same person. I don't know. See, that's the thing, is I just don't know. But I'm gonna go. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.